Bonnie Parker was standing in her house slippers and negligee, preparing to take a pot of red beans from the stove, when Clyde Barrow shouted that the law was outside. Blanche Barrow was playing solitaire, Buck was asleep on the couch, and Blanche's little white dog was lying at her feet. Minutes later, 2 officers were dead, 3 members of the gang were wounded, and Blanche was running down the street carrying her dog and a deck of cards. Bonnie and Clyde escaped, but what they left inside that house would expose their identities and create the image of Bonnie Parker that America would never forget. How did a quiet family reunion become the Joplin gun battle that transformed Bonnie and Clyde into national fugitives? Buck Barrow had recently decided to find his younger brother Clyde, whom he had not seen in 2 years. Buck insisted that he only wanted to visit and promised his sister Nell that he would never travel with Clyde or become involved in his crimes. Blanche did not believe that it would be that simple. She had never been in trouble with the law, was terrified of guns and bloodshed, and had cried for 2 days before leaving with Buck. The couple eventually met Clyde, Bonnie, and W.D. Jones outside of Fort Smith, Arkansas. The 5 traveled to Joplin, Missouri, where they rented a house in the suburbs with living quarters above a double garage. For several weeks, their existence looked strangely ordinary. Bonnie cooked red beans and cabbage, Blanche played solitaire and cared for her white dog, Buck rested, and everyone read magazines and exchanged news from home. Bonnie wrote poetry while the women mended clothing, sent out laundry, and had the men's suits cleaned. For a short time, it resembled a family reunion, except Clyde was already wanted for several killings. The group wanted to remain together and enjoy the temporary safety of the Joplin house, but their combined money eventually fell to only $8. Clyde decided that he and WD would scout for a place to rob. He told Bonnie where he was going, but did not explain that plan to Buck. After reaching the car, Clyde returned upstairs and kissed Bonnie again, telling her that he hated leaving her. Bonnie laughed and assured him that she would still be there when he returned. Clyde explained that this was not what worried him. He had a feeling that something was about to happen. According to the family account, Clyde had not driven a dozen blocks before turning the car around. He told WD that he could sense danger in the air and abandoned the search for a robbery target. He drove back to the house, pulled into the garage, and locked the door. At almost that exact moment, officers arrived outside. Upstairs, Bonnie was preparing to remove the red beans from the stove and put cornbread in the oven. Blanche was still playing solitaire, her dog was asleep at her feet, and Buck was sleeping on the couch. Clyde shouted that the law had arrived, and the quiet reunion instantly collapsed into chaos. Bonnie later remembered the smell of her beans burning, Blanche screaming, the dog barking, and gunfire erupting around the house. According to Bonnie's account in the book, she grabbed a gun, ran to the window, and fired at a man running down the street, although she insisted that she did not hit him. Before she could fire again, a bullet passed through the upper part of the window and sent glass falling around her. Buck pushed her down and ordered her to move away from the opening. In the garage below, Clyde and WD fired their machine guns while Clyde shouted for Bonnie and Blanche to get in the back of the car. Blanche had already panicked. At the first shot, she opened the door and ran down the stairs, with her dog following behind her. Still dressed in her negligee and without stopping to put on ordinary clothes or shoes, Bonnie ran into the garage. Buck followed carrying a gun, although Bonnie said she did not remember seeing him fire it. Bullets struck the walls, doors, and windows around them. WD had been wounded in the head, and as Clyde attempted to enter the car, he noticed blood coming from his chest. Bonnie found a flattened bullet just beneath the skin, and with Clyde's help, removing it using her fingertips and a hairpin. Instead of immediately entering the car, Clyde moved around the corner of the garage and continued firing. Bonnie followed and begged him to leave, but Clyde refused until he had fired at the man who had wounded him. Meanwhile, the officer's automobiles was blocking the driveway. WD released its brakes and pushed it down the drive until it rolled across the street and struck a curb. A wounded officer was lying in the front of their own car, and Buck stopped WD from driving over him. Buck ran into the gunfire, grabbed the dying man out of the automobile's path, and returned to the car. Clyde finally ran back, took over the wheel, and drove out while he and WD continued firing from opposite sides. Bonnie directed Clyde toward the street where Blanche had disappeared. They found her 2 blocks away, still running and sobbing with her little white dog in her arms. She climbed into the back seat beside Bonnie, still clutching the deck of playing cards she had been using when the shooting began. Bonnie later said it took approximately 30 minutes to pry the cards from Blanche's hand. Clyde drives so quickly that the group reached Amarillo in less than 8 hours, where they purchased medicine for WD's wounds. They had escaped Joplin, but they had abandoned nearly everything inside of the house. Blanche's purse containing Buck's pardon and their marriage license, making identification easy. The group had also left several rolls of film. When the officers developed them, they discovered photographs of 4 of the 5 fugitives. One showed Bonnie with a cigar in her mouth and a gun resting against her hip. Other photographs showed gang members posing with a weapon taken from Officer Purcell during an earlier kidnapping. According to the book, the cigar photograph permanently branded Bonnie as Clyde Barrow's cigar-smoking gun moll, even though the image had been posed. Officers in 3 states were now searching not only for Bonnie and Clyde, but also for Buck, Blanche, and an unidentified 5th man. W.D. Jones would later be traced through the photographs after his arrest. The Joplin escape had saved their lives, but the belongings they abandoned destroyed their anonymity and pulled Buck and Blanche completely into the manhunt. Before Joplin, Bonnie and Clyde were fugitives whose faces were still unfamiliar to much of the country. After Joplin, police possessed photographs, documents, names, and evidence connecting the entire group. The famous image of Bonnie with a cigar did not show the frightened woman who remembered burning beans, shattering glass, and bullets striking the walls around her. It created a character the newspapers could sell to the public. Bonnie and Clyde escaped the house, but they left behind photographs that would follow them for the rest of their lives. Thank you for watching and liking the video and subscribing to the channel. If you would like to further support the Eclectic Historical Society, you can join our Patreon and pick up some merch at theeclectichistoricalsociety.com. With that being said, this is the Eclectic Historical Society, and remember, history is lost if it is not repeated.